Today, I'm really excited to have Beth Forester here with me from Madison, West Virginia. Beth is nationally recognized as one of the leaders in the photographing industry and describes herself as a wife, mother, educator, and artist who loves to photograph people. She believes that photography is the best medium to remember the important people in our lives and those once-in-a-lifetime moments that occur each and every day. Beth discovered her love of photography when her daughter Catherine was born. Her daughter became her muse as she began to realize the importance of capturing the beautiful expressions and precious moments of this new person in her life. She understood how fleeting these moments were and became determined to aid her memory through photography. It was then that she found her life's work of photography and opened a portrait studio in her hometown of Madison. Her perceptions as a mother translated well into her portrait work in the studio, using her own personal experiences in order to capture the perfect photograph for each family. For the past 20 years, Beth has documented people's lives and their events, and her work has been featured in Rangefinder, Professional Photographer, Click, Digital Pro Photo, Chic Magazine, and West Virginia Executive. So, hi Beth, it's really great to have you here with us today.
Well, hi, thanks for having me. I appreciate you having me on the show.
Oh, it's fantastic. And today's topic is all about the business of baby photography. And I think actually you might be the first one that we've had on here to talk about this really interesting topic. And I know a lot of people have asked me about having somebody on here who knows more about baby photography than I do, because I am not a baby photographer. So this is really, really great. So you first found photography, as I mentioned, when your daughter Catherine was born. What was it about that time exactly that created that inspiration for you to become a photographer?
I don't know. I just think that in general, we see in the industry all the time, that's how people are getting into business. They pick up a camera to document their child's life. And that's what I did. I had always been artistic, so I had always drawn or created or painted. I'd done a lot of different things. And then when she was born, I picked up a camera to basically just start documenting, the things that she was doing and how she changed and different things like that. I was at that time too going to a professional photographer, so I kind of got to see sort of, how it all worked in the relationship of being a patron of photography. And then I was shooting my own images on the side. And at one point, she just basically wouldn't go to photography. She would just cry. It was terrible. So I had to do it all myself. So it was a little bit of both things there going on. And I think that was really great because when I entered into the business, I had already been a client and I understood the value. I understood, pricing and how they sold things to me. So I used that in my first baby offering.
I imagine that one of those things that happens when you became a parent and you started to document Catherine as she was born and growing up, that those memories that you're creating for yourself that you later went on to create for other people, that becomes personal. Would you say that that process really helped you to understand more about the reasons why people need to do this?
Well, and what they wanted as well. I grew up too. It's interesting. I tell people all the time, some people aren't your clients. Some people don't value photography. They don't love imagery. They don't have pictures hanging in their home. And those people aren't my clients. I grew up in a home, in my grandmother's home, my mother's home. I grew up surrounded by pictures. And my dad would sit with me with photo albums and tell stories about these pictures and these people in these pictures and people that I had never met, but I was able to sort of gain insight into their lives through our picture albums and the images that hung on the walls. So I grew up around pictures. I always loved pictures. The one thing I have learned is that I'm a visual learner. I'm much more inclined to take things in visually, and I need that visual representation to commit things to memory. So I think that was part of the whole natural process too. For me, is it was innate to want visual items around me for memory. And I think too, then I was able to bring that love of imagery and that storytelling aspect to it. And then understand too, like what I loved about pictures, and I could share that with other people so that they would love their pictures in the way that I loved my images too, and know what they want, what they were trying to show at different, with a baby, you're trying to show different stages of their progression and what they're doing at a particular age or stage in their life. So I think that perspective helped a lot. Sometimes clients don't know what they want. So as a mother and a visual storyteller, I'm able to put that story together for them and like, oh yeah, and when they see it, they're like, oh yeah, that's what I want. The same way they can't lay out, a design for a room and how they want it to look, but when they see it together, they're like, yes, I like that. So I think that helps a lot.
Growing up, obviously, you, as you said, you were surrounded by photographs, all from all aspects of your family history. Was that ever a surprise to you when you met other people and they didn't share that same experience, if you like?
To me, yes. I mean, I can't imagine not wanting to have a beautiful picture of my child hanging on the wall, but there really are people that, for whatever reason, they're just not as interested in photography. I've had clients that are that way. They're interested in one or two images, and they're small, and that's all that they care about. To each his own. I mean, I'm pretty tolerant of anybody or anything, and they have different things that are important to them or not, or that's maybe just, maybe they're just not a visual person. I mean, they're not, interested in that type of thing.
Yeah, and some of the people that I encountered would say things like, we never had lots of photographs in our house growing up. My mother wasn't a collector of photographs from everywhere, and I didn't really have lots of photographs of my grandparents. And then they would say, but I do. I want to make sure that we don't make that same mistake. And they become aware that photography is important, even though it wasn't there for them at an early part of their life.
I've always been a study of human nature and people in general. And I think that's the thing that's always struck me about people is how sometimes their past changes their perception. Sometimes it molds it. They do the same thing that their parents did or their family did in generations before. But then other children, they see it as a negative and they want to change and do something better or something different. So to me, it's really fascinating in human nature and how we change generation to generation.
It's very fascinating. I love the study of people and psychology and all that kind of thing. So you create a wide range of portraits from babies to children, high school seniors, families, and we're going to focus today on the world of baby photography, as we've already mentioned. How would you describe your particular style and approach to this subject, to babies?
The funny thing is people ask me this all the time, and I really can't describe my style other than clean. Everything is well lit. I'm pretty much a perfectionist all the way around, so maybe more vibrant. I definitely like, a little more saturated color. And I think the interesting thing about me is I feel like that all of my photography and why I've been able to be somewhat successful is it's not overly feminine and not overly masculine. It's just clean. I look at a lot of imagery, and when you're talking about babies, that's kind of different or hard or whatever, because sometimes they come in with really frou-frou things, and then the next session's a boy and there's no frou-frou to it at all. Some people are more simple in what they bring, and then some people are very ornate in what they bring. So for me, I like a lot of things. Some things may not be my taste, but it's kind of like play or dress up for me. I can say, oh, well, this is fun, to play with these patterns, or maybe a zebra print thing that I would probably not really put in my own home, but it's really interesting. So it's kind of fun for me. But I think that part of the thing is like my photography doesn't really scream, oh, these were all photographed by a woman, or these were all photographed by a male. And when you're talking about babies, I don't really see that as much as, in senior photography or other work. A lot of times I feel like I can look at a lot of things and think, oh, that was taken by a woman or that was taken by a man. And maybe, mine's different in that way. I don't know. Somebody else that has a similar style to me described their look as like Gap or Pottery Barn. I don't know. That to me, I don't know. I don't really have a name for it.
This is actually something that I've wondered about for some time, and I'm really glad that I've got the chance to talk to someone who photographs a lot of babies, because when we think about portrait photography, we think about things like bringing out the personality of the subject, bringing out the essence of their character, that kind of thing. I'm sure that babies do have a personality to some extent, but I'm not sure that it's the same type of thing as we might find, say, in an older person or a high school senior or something like that. How does your approach to the photography take that into consideration?
That's a really interesting point that I really hadn't thought of, because that's I'm probably best known for my high school senior work. And with senior work, I'm basically trying to tell the story of who these young adults, people emerge, on the cusp of emerging from a teen to an adult. And their whole interest is telling who they are by the objects that they bring, the clothing that they wear. That's the whole purpose of the whole session, and that's one of the things that I think I've always been able to do pretty well, straddling that male, feminine, women, masculine side. It's like, if you bring me something that's really edgy and masculine, I can work with that. If you bring me something overly feminine, I can work with that. But I never really thought about the fact that you're doing this newborn and their personality really isn't. I mean, it's there. As a mother, I will tell you it's there, but it's not out in the open yet. At that point, for me, it's more about what the parents, they're interested in. So I try to get them, tell me about things that you're interested in. What does your husband do for an occupation? What hobbies do you all like to do together as a family? Things like that. And sometimes, they might bring a snail outfit, which has really nothing to do with their personality, and that's just because it's cute, and that's fine. But I think if you can try to get the parents to tell their story or who they are as this new family unit, if that makes any sense, how this baby fits in their life somehow, they're going to resonate more with those images than not. But the interesting thing is that person is so new in their life, and they're so, the face. So, I've always focused on the face, and that face, it tells a story, the little wrinkles and the folds of what they look like at that time, and they're only going to look like that really for a couple weeks. It's not very long. So I think at that point, you're doing two things. So I always try to make sure that I do something that sort of the family is interested in, or a concept, or something that maybe they're interested in. And then I really try to sort of strip the baby down and do a few things that are really, really just focused on the little face and the hands and the things that are these sort of traits that they are never going to possess again.
When I look around and I see baby photography online and on Facebook and Pinterest and all that kind of thing, I get the sense that for a lot of photographers, it's almost more about the props in some regards than it is about the baby. They have all these fancy hats and blankets and outfits and all that kind of thing, and it becomes almost, to me, maybe I don't have the right view of it. Maybe I have it wrong, but it almost seems like the baby is almost a dispensable part of the photograph, in the sense that, well, you just take that baby out and you put another one in and take another photograph, and it's almost the same.
It's interesting that you say that. I wish I was a writer. I'm not a very good writer, but I've been writing this article for a while. It's about the portraits of my daughter throughout her life. And this all comes back, so give me just a second here. But in this article, it talks about how that, as my muse and as a person that I developed through my career with, we did all the faddish things of the time. We did the angel wings, and we did the flower fields, and we did the dress up kind of, whatever the moment was, whatever was popular at the time. We did it all, because as those faddish things, it's like, oh, you get wrapped up and you do it. But, the interesting thing for me is those are in the portrait album of her life, but the images that I hang on the wall are the simple images, and mostly black and white. They're just her face. They basically tell me what she looked like at that age. Sometimes they tell a story about what she's doing at that time, but honestly, the ones that I have hanging all over my house are the simple ones that are just simple black and whites of her face. And I think it's really interesting. And I bring that to photography when I shoot. This is my mother's perspective that I bring. So every shoot that I do, like I said, we may do the faddish things or with all the props and the things and whatever they're interested in and all the cute stuff, which is fun. But I always strip it down and make sure that I make a portrait that is a timeless piece that basically no one could look at and say, well, that was taken during this fad, or that was taken during that fad. And that's my mother's perspective, because I know as a mother that, I want both. One thing is cute at a time, but in the longevity of the period, I really want to know what she looked like, stripped down. And I think that's really interesting that you comment on that, because I think that people do tend to forget that sometimes. Not to really forget it, and maybe not, but I can't help it. The little props and stuff that they bring are all fun, and it's really cute too. But again, can't emphasize enough how important it is to take a timeless thing. And I do that with seniors too. I try to, they're bringing in clothing, clothing that's very dated. I mean, I grew up in the 80s with big hair and hideous, outfits and neon clothes. And I just look back at that and I think, God, how awful can that be? And I don't want to remember that. I think that, for me too, looking back at that, the sort of more timeless images that we have, the simpler things are the ones that I was drawn to, because you can't really date it other than the fact of the face and what the child looked like at that time or what I look like.
As I look at conversations on Facebook, particularly amongst photographers, I see a lot of this, where can I get this hat from? Where can I get this prop from? And that kind of thing. And they got this whole new range of such and such. And I think to myself, that's all well and good, but why aren't you focusing more on the art of what you're doing as opposed to trying to embellish it with all of these props and extra little things, almost with the belief that those are going to make the images more saleable?
Well, it's funny. It's interesting. And I think too, like, I'm a statistics person, so I'm a numbers person. So I sit and I watch what everybody orders. And honestly, like, all of the little things, I do have certain props that I keep for certain things, but most of the props that I'm shooting are props that people have brought into me. So all the little hats and all the little things are all the things that they've brought that are telling their story. But when I look at the end of the sale, I look at every sale. And to be honest with you, the ones that they order, the ones they get the big prints of, the ones that are going to hang on the walls, are the stripped down images of just the baby. Mm-hmm. We keep certain hats and things like that in the studio, and sometimes it can be really important. Babies sometimes have misshapen heads, or they have just different things. And I think a lot of times a great hat or a headband or something like that can bring attention to the face and sort of frame it a little bit better. When they're 2 or 3 days old, they're not all C-section babies that come out with a perfect little round head, and a hat can be quite helpful. For me, I look down and see what people order, and they are ordering, to me, the simpler images of just the baby's face. The closer, the better. I mean, like, shoulders up, giant baby head on the wall, and that's what they're really drawn to that. And I'm always still, again, a numbers person, like, what's going to make this sellable at the end. And I do think that the props and the things, it's cute, and you can't resist it. Oh my gosh, it's so cute. Look how cute this is. And we're all drawn to it. But I think it's just important to create a balance. And that's the thing. But part of it's marketing. I mean, really, like, if I just put a baby just sort of swaddled or sitting there and it's just their head, that's not the kind of stuff that draws new clients in. The cute stuff does. So you have to, it's all a little game that we're playing. It's a balancing act between you, the client, the potential client, the sale, the marketing, and you're all running this fine balance of things, and what the baby will let you do. There's a whole other balance there. What you can do. And so, I always ask people, like, what do you want? Tell me your highlights of the things that you want. And I tell them each different things that they talk about have degrees of difficulty. Some things are harder and some things are easier. And we generally try to start with something easier to make sure that we get something. And then we move on to something that's harder. Maybe, the baby propped up on its hands, or something like with their hanging in something, or, on dad's arm, hanging and things like that. We talk about all of this, and I get what they want, what I think they want, and what's the most important to them. And then we kind of go from there. And I tell them, I'm like, I will do my best, but the baby is going to dictate more of what we do than anything else. Now, I have tricks and I have things that help for sure, but sometimes they don't like to be laid on their stomach, and some children don't really like to be turned on their back, and some children don't like to be held in this position. So you never really know what they're going to do. You just have to know, like, if that doesn't work, okay, well, here is position B that we're going to work on.
So in a sense, the baby's running the show, right?
The baby runs the show, yes.
I have the utmost admiration for anybody that can photograph babies. They seem so breakable and fragile to me that I'd be scared to death of breaking them.
I can understand that too, because a lot of times when I'm working with them, I feel like, oh my gosh, I feel mean because I keep pushing it. They're taking their arm down and I'm pushing it back up where I want it to be. And then they push it back down again. And then I put it back up on their face. And it is hard to think about the fragility. And luckily, because I've had a child, I know they're, and I always feel like parents it's surprising to me that they're so trusting. It's like, here, I'm going to put your baby in this hanging thing and you're going to hold on to it. And they're like, okay, whatever you think, whatever you think.
Yeah. Landscape photography is easy because it's very difficult to break a mountain. and it doesn't move away unexpectedly most of the time.
But the interesting thing to me, like, I am not interested in landscape photography because it's boring.
Ooh.
I think I like a challenge. I don't know. Like, I don't want to sit in I can't sit still for that long. So I don't want to sit to watch the light change. Like, that's just like, if I'm there and it's nice, I'm like, oh, great. And then I'm out.
Landscape photographer photographing a baby. Well, we're just waiting for the light to change.
That's right.
It doesn't quite work out, does it? So let's talk about branding for a second. You've obviously built up quite a good brand in your community. What would you say for new photographers, what they can do to develop a good brand and how they can find the right position for themselves in their market?
I think, to be honest with you, the first and foremost thing is to love what you do. And if you don't love baby photography, don't do that. Okay? If you love a particular type of photography, do that. Because what happens is, and I found this in my own work, when I do high school seniors or things like that, I feel very confident in pricing because, yes, I love it. I bleed on every image. I am going to put 110% effort in because I live and die for it. And I love newborns, and I'm determined to capture that perfect. I don't have a great newborn shot of my daughter that I wish that I had. So, for me, like, I want everybody to have that, something that I didn't have. And because I believe in those two things, I can say, yes, this is how much it costs. And when you're confident and you love what you do, it's easier to stand behind your price. Now, 2-year-olds, they love me or hate. It's a 50-50 shot. That's why if somebody comes in for a 2-year-old and I'm like, well, the whole objective is in the frame. That's what we're going for.
Yeah, anywhere in the frame.
Anywhere in the frame is success. It's a little game you play because they're trying to develop their own independence. There's a lot going on and it's a struggle. It's a battle between you and the 2-year-old. That's generally what it's like. But the interesting thing is because that's so complicated and it's sort of a love-hate relationship here with the 2-year-olds either liking me or hating me. I'm not like going to get down and act silly because that's just not my personality. If a 2-year-old really likes a silly kind of goofy person, they're not going to like resonate with me. But now if the 2-year-old is very more mature or a child, and let's say in general, not necessarily 2, but if they're usually an only child that's very used to interacting with adults and I don't really talk down to them, they really respond to me. But I don't believe in that, so I don't feel confident in saying like, yes, I'm really great at that and I deserve this price for that. If you love what you do and you feel very confident in it, then you can market and brand yourself and charge the prices that, can make you a living.
I did have a spell where I photographed children. I think this probably put me off for the rest of my life, because I had this very vocal 4-year-old girl and she would not cooperate for the camera. And we took 2 photographs of her and she said, I'm done. I'm finished. That's it. That's kind of all you're going to get. The mom was apologizing. I am so sorry. She's not normally like this. I'm like, it's okay. Don't worry about it. And as they were leaving, I kind of got down on my knees and I said to this girl, so did you have fun? No, it was lame, boring and stupid. And she just spun around and just hightailed it out of the door. And I thought, maybe I'm not cut out for this. Probably mountains and landscapes may be my better choice.
Well, there's a certain age that I don't know that any photographer is really cut out for, to be honest. I know photographers that don't photograph particular ages because they're very complicated. And I guess I'm just a kind of a roll with the punches kind of person. Like, oh, well, like I said, 50-50, they're going to like me or they're not. And that's about it. But it's funny because sometimes I feel like that the biggest challenges that some of the kids that I've had the most struggle with reap the biggest rewards because they're much more expressive, and it's a lot, it's kind of one of those things where if you cruise through it and you look back on it and you're like, oh yeah, I could have done better, but I didn't have to work at it because it seemed so easy at the time. And then sometimes, you might have a child that, you're really having to pull out all the stops to try to get something out of them. And then you get back home and you look at the image and you're like, wow, I got lots of great expressions, some, from the full gamut, and it becomes exciting. I don't market to 4-year-olds though. I'll say that. 4 is not so bad. There's a certain certain age. Like I wouldn't like market to that specific age, but I don't know. But some people probably really like it. They enjoy that age because you really don't know what's coming next. I like to be in control, and that's why I like babies, newborns, up to a certain point, and I would like seniors because they're pretty much they'll do for the most part, what I want them to do. I feel like I'm in control. When they hit about a year to 18 months, you're out of control. They're completely running the show.
So let's talk about target audience. This is something that marketers throw around left and right. You've got to know your target audience. You have to know who it is you're talking to. For your baby photography, is a target audience as easy as saying expectant moms, people with babies, or is it a bit more complicated than that?
That's a good question. I wouldn't say no. It's not all expectant mothers. Obviously, due to costs and things like that, there are some people that probably aren't my clients because they don't value what I offer. It's not important to them. They're not someone that has pictures hanging on their walls. So I wouldn't say every expectant mother is my target client, but that's definitely a little easier than, like, say, a different market. I mean, it's pretty obvious. It's like, okay, anybody that's getting ready to have a baby. But, it's interesting. I'll have people I have people trying to book as soon as they get pregnant, they're booking with me for their newborn sessions. And then I have other people that wait till 2 weeks after, they've had the baby to call. And it's like, oh, sorry, you've missed the window. Not that I won't photograph them, but, for whatever reason, they're not as interested, or they, and sometimes it's not that. It's just circumstances. We've had that in occasion, they've had some complications after the pregnancy and they've been very ill and things like that. But we try to recommend that they call before they have the child and at least get on our schedule. We realize that baby is going to come whenever they come, but I can only shoot and process so many images in any given month. And if you're not in that month already, I can't make new room, basically. So we can try to move you to another day, so we try to get them to book, but it doesn't always happen that way. So
obviously you're very busy. You have a full schedule and you've got people coming in to see you all the time. What about competition? Does competition from other photographers ever bother you? I mean, how do you handle that sort of idea of, well, there's photographers popping up left and right on every street corner, it seems, and they're always trying to undercut everybody else on price, for example. It causes a lot of anguish for new photographers who are trying to make a niche for themselves in the market when they say, oh, well, yeah, but I don't feel like I can compete. Do you have any advice for them?
Well, I think two or three things on this. I don't think any of us cannot be, affected. I try to sort of keep my head down and keep focused and moving forward in my own direction but yeah, you look around. I mean, it's human nature to look around and see what else is around you. And sometimes it's really disheartening. And, you think, oh God, I just, you can't. It's hard. It's hard to go in. I feel like for me, it's a lot of pressure to go in and perform every day. Like I have to be the best Beth Forester today. I have to go do that every day. And sometimes that's hard. It's not hard. I mean, once I get there, I'm fine. But, to feel like, am I good enough? And I think too, when you're really starting out and you're trying to position yourself in the market and you're trying to price yourself, it's awful. It's really hard. Your self-doubt is there. Can I do this? And like I said, I get that same self-doubt every day. Am I good enough to get the job done today and be better than, the person down the street or better than who I was yesterday? And I think it's really, really hard. But the one thing for me, like I do not let other people's pricing distract me from what I'm doing, because I know what I have to do to make a living. And I can't give in that area, and at the point, if I can't get clients to pay what I'm asking them to pay, I will move on to a different profession. I'll have to, because I can't slit my own throat and slash prices. And one of the things I was telling another photographer friend of mine, and it's really part, I think, of this perpetual sort of downward spiral on pricing we've seen, is because there are so many new people in the business and they're not comfortable with charging higher prices because they're not confident. One of the things I think that separates a professional from an amateur is consistent, repeatable results. Can you go in and do this every day? And I feel like for the most part, I can light the same every day. I understand lighting. I understand posing. I understand the tricks of the trade, be it for babies. I know the psychology of what's going on in there. And, I've dealt with all of these situations. So yes, I can pretty much go in and combat any situation. And for new people, that's really hard because they haven't dealt dealt with all of these situations yet. And when I was new, I would do things that I won't do now. I would go shoot a commercial job that's not really in my field because I'm trying to pay the bills or whatever. So you always have this certain people building their business. And when you're building your business, you're willing to do things that are outside of your comfort zone or outside of your specialty, or also at a reduced price in order to what you feel like is gain more exposure. So what we have is this continual people entering, trying to gain more exposure and doing things at a cut rate price. In the building stage, we have all these people building. It's, I think, hurting the perception of the value of photography, partly because, I understand, because I was there once too in saying, like, am I worth it? And some days I doubt if I'm worth it to this day. But at the end of the day, I look down at my checkbook and I look down at my bookkeeping and I know what I have to do to pay my bills. And I don't just have to, pay my bills. I have to pay for health insurance. I have to, I have a lot of responsibility, make sure that our mortgage is paid and different things like that. So I can't really waver on the price because I realized that. And I was, I did the same things. I made all the mistakes. I priced myself too cheap in the beginning. And it's a hard uphill road. But one of the things that people ask me, like, well, how do you do it then when you're new? I'm like, well, number one is you put a higher value on it. You can always discount. That's what stores do. They go out and they put a value on something, and this is worth $100. And they may run a sale, 25% off or 30% off, and what happens is when you do that, people say, well, aren't you cheapening your brand? I'm like, no, because if I do something to that extent, they have to follow my rules. My rules are you have to be photographed on this day. You only have a 30-minute appointment. You're going to view them in the studio the same day. You're not going to have the luxuries that other things offer where you change outfits and you have multiple looks and things like that. I said, you can discount things, but you still aren't taking away from the overall value. And that's one of the things that's really important when you're starting out is, start out with a higher value. If you want to discount it, but make sure, number one, they know they're getting a deal and make sure they follow your rules in order to get it. I feel like so many new photographers are basically catering to the client. That's all they want to do is basically, well, my clients don't want that, or they want this, or my clients want this, and my clients think this is too much, or my clients, I tell them, I'm like, let me tell you what your clients want. Your clients want you to take the pictures for them and give them to them for free. That's what every client would love. That's their ultimate awesome thing. That's what they would like. And you can't do that. So you have to think about what you want, what you need to survive, what you need to pay your bills, and stop thinking less about the client and more about yourself in order to succeed and thrive.
Absolutely. I think, we have to put blinders on almost to what the competition is doing, not pay attention to all of that other stuff that's going on out there, and focus on what does your business need to make a profit and survive.
Exactly.
Go with that and don't worry about what everyone else in the race is doing. You touched on sales a little bit in terms of what it is that people want. Let's focus our efforts on there for a second. Photographers that I talk to a lot tell me that selling the finished work is one of the biggest problems. They can attract some clients, they get people in, they photograph them, and then they fall at the last fence trying to sell the work to the client. And particularly, I think with baby photography, there are some ways of packaging products together and creating plans and all this kind of thing. Can you talk a little bit about how some of that works and how it can help the sales process?
One of the things that's really great about if you're going to do baby photography or newborn photography, it's really great because it's almost somewhat prepackaged for you. And a baby plan is great. Almost pretty much, honestly, I think 90% of newborns, all the newborn and mothers that I shoot, 90% go into my baby plan. That means I'm going to see them 3 times in a year. And the baby plan, the idea of it is to basically focus on these different stages of their life. So we shoot the newborn, which is in the first couple of weeks. We shoot them at the sitting up stage, which is anywhere from 6 to 7 months usually. And then we do the first year, which is traditionally, sort of a time-honored time that you capture a child's life. So it's kind of prepackaged. And then what we do is we have this baby plan, and we have coupons in there and things that they're going to take home in their plan. They get a little box and it tells them at each session how to prep for the session and what to bring and what to expect and what to wear. And then it has little coupons for different products. And we say, this product is really great for the newborn products. For the 6-month session, they're going to have lots of expressions. These are really great products that you're going to probably want at that time. And then at the year, it's a different sort of set of products. So, but the prepackaged nature of it is that the child changes so much and that stage ends really quickly that they have to have something at that age. So it's really easy to get people into a baby plan. And for us, it's just, I'm basically locking them into me by bringing them into the plan. And for us, a plan is just like Unable to Resist. If you buy all the sessions separately, it's going to cost you more than if you go into the plan. And with the plan, you get certain discounts. And at the end, you get a gallery with an image from each session. That's what you get at the end of the 6 months. And I know that what's going to happen is every time that they come in, they're going to spend probably, a certain amount of money and by the images that we take and the things that we sell. So for me, it's a whole win-win, and I sort of lock them in for the whole year, which is really great.
Is that something that they pay for entirely up front, or do they have like payment plans?
What we do is they'll pay for the baby plan itself up front. So that's usually payable the day of the first session. And we have different degrees of plans, and they'll pay for that plan. So that's all up front. And then what will happen is then when they go to the ordering stages, then it doesn't really include any prints for many of the things other than that one gallery right at the end. So then they'll have to order prints from each of the sessions themselves. And we have different packages and so forth that they can do that from. Baby plan is a great plan. And, the great thing about babies, like I do a lot of seniors. Well, seniors, they're only going to be photographed in this period of time. Babies come all year. So, I shoot a lot of babies in times when, I don't have any other type of work because it's not a seasonal type of thing. Babies aren't seasonal.
Thank goodness, right?
Yes. So that kind of keeps a steady flow of income throughout the whole year. And I don't know, I'm not really, this is the one number I don't really know that well, but I generally probably at all times have 20 to 30 people at any time in a baby plan, in sometime within a year, if that makes any sense. Probably closer to 30 at any time.
A baby plan sounds great, but it also sounds to me, something that might be kind of complicated to set up, and administer and manage and keep track of who's at what stage and the marketing parts of it and the, all of the packaging and all that kind of thing. Please tell me you've got something that can help people with that.
I do. We actually have on my photoduds.com site, we actually have a full baby plan ready for you to implement into your studio. It has all the coupons, the cards, it has the session guides, a price list. It has all the marketing cards to market the baby plan, tell what it does. It's my baby plan, everything that I do with all of my prices. It's all editable text. We got some really cute little graphics and things like that. So basically you can go in and plug in your own prices or stick with mine and change a few words here or there, and you're ready to go on a plan. And it tells in there, at what times the children are going to be photographed, like the newborn, it'll say, because it's information that's to the parents. So, it'll be a card. Your newborn session needs to take place in this amount of time, and you need to schedule it then. The sitting up stage is generally 6 to 7 months. This is what to expect, what to wear, what to bring, everything.
So this is a real baby plan system in a box. Just add babies.
Yep. Just add babies. Just add your logo and babies and you're good to go. You can start a baby plan tomorrow.
People can get a hold of this from the PhotoDuds website?
It's photoduds.com, PHOTOD as in dog, UD as in dog, S. Photoduds.com.
Fantastic. And I understand that you have a generous discount coupon.
We do have a code for anybody that's one of your followers. It's called Zen20. It's for 20% off anything in the PhotoDuds store. So we have other things geared at seniors, at design, but it's just ZEN20. And you enter that code in, you'll get 20% off your entire purchase.
For people who are starting out in this and they want to get into baby photography, what would you say are the top mistakes that people are making, or the things that maybe they tend to overlook?
The biggest thing I would say is maybe understanding, like I had a lot of psychology, so I understand ages and stages and what the child is doing at particular times. And so a lot of times, like shooting babies at the wrong time for example. That would probably be the biggest mistake anybody could make. So, I've learned that, a lot of times, if you can shoot a baby like a newborn within the first 10 days, and the sooner the better, actually, the sooner the better. I've had one baby that came home from the hospital and I shot them at 2 days old, and I could not wake them up. I could do anything with them. Basically could have hung that child up by whatever, and there was nothing I could do to wake that child up. And it was like a dream come true. But within the first 10 days, like colic and things like that, people are like, well, don't you have problems with, if you have a baby that's colicky? And I'm like, honestly, if you study up on it, most children don't develop the symptoms of colic till they're about 10 days to 2 weeks old. So even if they're going to be a colicky baby, they're not going to be so yet. So a lot of things are timing. The other thing too, like if you do a sitting up stage, sitting up, there's only about 2 weeks that they're going to sit up and they're not going to crawl. If you can hit that time when they're sitting up and they're not crawling, it's like a dream. They sit there and they're just so happy to sit up because they've just learned to do that, and they don't go anywhere. Now, if you wait and they start crawling, then it becomes very complicated because you're constantly there crawling out of your frame, that you can't get them upright. I mean, it's just not working. And, we really, really try to tell people that it's really, really important to, hit that time very well. Like 4 months, like I don't really like to photograph 4 months. They really can't sit up on their own. They're mostly laying on something or something like that. So there's not a lot you can do with a 4-month-old. But, 6-month-old, when they're sitting up, you can put props in there. They do a lot of cute things. They'll sort of clap, and there's just a lot of things you can photograph. So really photographing at the proper times, it will not ensure success, but it definitely will do a lot better. It will make things easier.
Beth, thank you so much. This has been really fascinating. There's so much more that we could probably go into. I mean, we haven't even talked about marketing or anything like that yet. Maybe we can have you back and talk a little bit more about the marketing of baby photography or something like that at some point. But on behalf of everyone listening to this, thank you so much for being so generous with your time and your experience and expertise. It's been really great to have you on here.
Well, thanks. I really, really enjoyed it. You had really some great questions and great comments and points. So I really appreciate it. I enjoyed it a lot.
Me too. I had a great time. So thanks again, and maybe we'll have you back on another time.
Sounds great.